Welcome to this Blender tutorial. In this video we will dive into modeling with modifiers in Blender. You will learn how to create stunning models by leveraging the power of modifiers to simplify your workflow and achieve professional results. Modifiers in Blender are powerful tools that simplify modeling, save time, and offer flexibility with non-destructive workflow. They enable dynamic adjustments, enhance creativity, and make complex tasks easy, benefiting both beginners and experts alike. Get ready to explore techniques that will save you time, boost your creativity, and help you to unlock the true potential of Blender's modifier stack. Let's get started and bring your ideas to life. I kindly ask for your support by watching the course and engaging with the content I share. With your help, I aim to turn this channel into a comprehensive resource for learning Blender. Your support will inspire and motivate me to produce more high quality and engaging content, sharing my knowledge and experience with you all. Let's embark on this learning journey together and build a thriving community of Blender enthusiasts. I look forward for your feedback, suggestions, and continued support. Thank you so much. For this project, we will use Blender 4.3, and for the modifiers, you will find them in this folder called for modifiers, and by clicking on add modifiers, we will see all this collection, edit, generate, and deform. So we will use these three collections. If you are a beginner, make sure to watch my previous 2 courses on YouTube, completely free to learn all the essential basics needed for this course. In my first course, I taught Blender at a beginner level, and in the second course, I provided a complete guide to 3D modeling in Blender. The first model that I like to create is a very interesting brush. So for that we can use curves. Then we want to combine it with the modifiers. So let's rotate it in y-axis and then in z-axis. Let's rotate it 180 degrees. And here I like to press V and choose vector. Let's move it, scale it. Let's set the transform pivot point to individual origin. Scale it like so. And now we want to model. So we need actually a reference image. So you can search after any brush or whatever you like, found it and save it to your folder and just reuse it. So in this case, let's select these vertex and press E to extrude it and then R for rotate it. Then choose it to vector. And then we can just play around with these shapes. And then E once again. E for extrude. And then close it here. So let's select everything, V and vector. Now, how we can use these, actually how we can make it a brush with the help of these. First of all, let's go to modifiers and we want to use screw modifier. You will see for the curve object, we have less modifiers in the generate. So let's use a screw modifier. And we can play around with the axis. We want to set it to x-axis. And I would like to press V and set it to automatic. It's a lot better now. With only one single click, you can create this very interesting shape. Not only one click, but yeah, I mean it. With this way, you can speed up your workflow. And then now here you can select these 2 guys, V and vector, and then scale this one instead. let's do the same thing here. We can press W, select the select box, move them up. Let's select these two, V, Vector, and we can select this one, scale it up. And then set it to vector again. Okay, so this is the shape that we have gone so far. It's very low poly. We can play around with the steps, set it to 64 for example, to make it really round. And another thing is that I like to scale these parts. So let's set it to bounding box and scale this part and move them towards this way just a little bit, and we created this very interesting shape. Of course we can play around with it more. And now let's for example select this vertex again, shift D to take a duplication of that, and then just extrude it a few times, extrude and extrude, and then select it by pressing L, V, and choose automatic. And that's the brush which we have created. Of course you can at any time just select it and play around with it to make it longer or bigger. Let's rotate it. And this is the first modifier that we worked on and used, which is a screw modifier. We can go here and reset the rotation and just need to type 90 degrees, negative 90 degrees. And this is what we have got. So now you can just copy and paste these to create different sort of shapes. We can just create all of these shapes with only a few clicks with the help of modifiers, and then we actually have full control over each of these really fast. This one is the same actually screw modifier, and then we can apply the screw modifier and just work on the rest to make it much complexer. So you can combine each modifier together to make it really good. So let's get rid of this. For example, for the bell, you can see that I just created these very interesting shapes around it, and with the combination of a few other meshes such as torus. And for this shape we just need to actually move after applying all the modifiers. For example, let's press Shift D, and then we want to apply the modifiers for here, 90 degrees, and then let's press Ctrl and A to apply these modifiers. Can actually apply modifiers when we are using curves, but we have to select the object and then right click and then go to convert to mesh, and now it's applied. Let's select this part and we can select it by P. So let's select a vertex or a vertex of this, and then we can use proportional editing. For example, let's set it to a sphere and then play around with the proportional size. Let's set it to 5 or 4, and we can create this nice shape. Let's set it to sharp, and then we need to rotate it towards this way, and that's it. So this is the first modifier which we used, screw modifier, which is interesting. Let's create a collection for this. We select everything, press M, and choose a new collection and name it to something. In this case, I named it to screw. And let's move this one out of the collection. So here we moved it, and let's turn this one off. Shift S, selection to cursor. And I'd like to convert this one to something else. Let's press L, select the vertex and press L and just remove the vertices. And yeah, let's shape it to something else, because I have a good plan for these. We can press V to set it to vector, or let's turn this proportional editing off for a second. And we can move it down. You can select the vertex and press X to dissolve it as well. And let's press W. We can select the tweak option or tweak tool, and we start to tweak things. So this is some interesting shape that we have created so far. We could work with these more to save even better shapes. So that's what we have created so far, and let's use another modifier to make it, instead of just taking duplication of these, make our job faster, and that's gonna be the array modifier. So with the help of array, we can stack these objects a couple of times without duplication of it. So let's play around with the Z instead, set it to 1 and make it 0. Oh no, we need to set it to Y instead of Z, because Z, if I just rotate, it will make things like so. Let's reset it, and then we have make some distance in between each of these. Let's set it to 2. And that's how you can shape your object very easy. Let's delete this one, and we can extrude it towards this way and this way. Set both of these to vector, and as well this one to vector. Let's press V, vector, and then E for extrude, and fill this area. Of course, you can assign another array. So instead, let's try Y and make it 0. Oh, let's try 2 in Z axis and make it 0. Let's move it to 7. And now we can have this very interesting shape. So with the help of these array modifier, you can create many soldiers as you like, and at any time you can just right click, convert those to mesh, and make those shade out to smooth. So let's press Ctrl Z and move it to a new collection, name it array. We will keep modifiers as well, and let's turn it off. It's time for using subdivision modifier. So for that, we can create a very interesting piece of food, piece of pizza. So let's add a plane, and we could actually use a cube as well, but let's extrude it, or let's first scale this part down. Just a little bit, and then we want to assign a few loop cuts. So let's move this loop cut backward a little bit, and then we press Ctrl and B. Oh, not now. And now let's press Ctrl and B to bevel this loop cut, and then let's select these two edge and make those scan those in x-axis. So this is the very basic shape. Now we can select these two and move them in y-axis to make it just a bit round curvy shape. And then now we want to assign a few loop cuts here. Let's first scale it. Let's assign a loop cut here in this way. And at this time, we need to extrude it towards downward, because now we will receive the same geometry as we have here. And now we can select these three faces and extrude them up. That's perfect. You can select it and move it up a little bit. Now if I just press Ctrl N2, we will achieve a better result. And this part is fixed. Now we can press Ctrl and R for adding a loop cut to make this part stronger. So we can bevel that part by Ctrl B, because Subdivision modifier will ask us, it say that if you want to make the edges sharper, you have to assign assign a loop cut to the closer to the boundary. So you can see that if I just grab this loop cut, and if I just press GG 2 times and move it really close, and if I just turn it on, you will see that this part is more sharp than this. And of course, if you want to work more on that, you can select the entire face and press I to insert the face, and boom, just take a look how sharp you got it. So let's assign a few other loop cuts, such as here, and move this one down just a little bit, and another one here. Let's turn it up, and I like to select these faces. We press Shift D to duplicate it and press P to separate that part. And now let's turn this one off by pressing H. Add a few loop cuts here. So let's add one loop cut here, Ctrl R, another one here. Let's press Shift Z to see what we're doing exactly. And let's add a few here. We can use Ctrl and B to bevel this loop cut, and then we can use the segments to assign a couple of segments. Hold on Alt and move it. Set it to 1. And now I like to select these a few edges, and I want to extrude those in this way, in Z-axis. And then let's move this one. If I just turn it on, you will see we have got this very interesting shape. You can shade out to smooth. Of course, we can work on this area by adding a level of loop cut. And then let's do the same thing here. We need to select these few faces, extrude them. And let's press Ctrl R to assign another loop cut. So now it's time to add a solidify modifier to give this cheese of the pizza a bit depth. It's good to apply the solidify modifier before subdivision, so The order of these is important. And you can turn on even thickness. So I'd like to work a little bit on this area. Instead of leaving these like so, we can make them just a bit round. Now it's better. So at any time we can play around with the thickness of here. And now let's press Alt H to bring everything back and turn the subdivision for this as well. Let's work on this front a little bit, move it towards this way. I feel like you can add even here. Now it's a lot better. Of course, you can assign a few more shapes, like using a cylinder. Let's set it to 32 and just scale it down to make it like to assign more details on these. And that's perfect. And shade out to smooth. You can even assign the subdivision modifier for these. But as you see, if I just assign it, you will see this kind of result. So let's select these two faces and press I to insert a face to get rid of that problem. And insert face once again, and we will get this very interesting shape. But I like to, just get rid of this. We will keep it simple as it is. And we want to move it to food collection, since I've created this already, so this looks like so, but we can get rid of this collection. Just press delete, and then we have it here. And let's move press Shift Z to reset this 3D cursor to the world origin. Let's demonstrate another very interesting modifier called for Boolean. We want to create or model a very interesting class, and a part of that we want to use Boolean. So let's add a plane. I'd like to enable my screencasting. We'll look at from top of the graphic and we zoom a little bit. We enter tab and we want to add a loop cut. So Ctrl R and add the loop cut somewhere until here. Then press 2 for edge. We'll select this edge if extrude in x-axis. And then we press 1 for edge for the vertices. Grab this vertex, make sure to turn off the proportional editing, and grab it and move it in y-axis. just a little bit. Then 2 again, E and extrude in x-axis, and then E and extrude it towards this way. Let's play around with here. We want more space. It's a sign of a sunglass. So now we can give it some thickness by solidify modifier. Zoom closer, hold down shift. It sounds good. Let's put 1 for now. 1 seems to be really thick. Let's add a bevel modifier as well, and want to set it to 3 or 4, just to make the edges just a bit smoother. And then I like to cut this area. So for that, let's move this just a bit down. Y-axis, and now it's better. So for cutting a piece of an object, we can use another object and use that as a target to make a hole. In this case, it can be a cube. In edit mode, we scale it down and we move it in this way. And then I like to add the loop cut in between, and then Ctrl B to bevel that loop cut. And now I like to press Ctrl and 2 for assigning to a level of subdivision. Or we can just get rid of these, get rid of these 2 edges, and then we have just this single object. Instead, what we can do is grabbing these edges, and then we can press N, we go to item, and in this case we want to use actually edge data. It can be min crease, I believe. So let's go and add the bevel modifier, and want to set it to, oh, it should be weight, sorry. So it should be weight, and you can see it starts to work. So we can play around with the amount and segment. So this is a lot easier instead of just going further and back a couple of times. We want to reuse this object for controlling the other parts for creating a Boolean or a hole. So Shift D. Oh, it's better to copy it in edit mode. So let's move it here, Shift D, and then rotate it. I will explain why it's best to do a copy of that in edit mode. And let's select this area, move it just a bit longer. Okay, that's great. So now you can see that we have to actually extrude or move these objects so that we can see it even from this side. So now if we select this bigger object, we add another modifier called from Boolean modifier. Choose this eye since this is searching after the target, and choose this one. And as you can see, it created that hole that we are searching for. So let's grab this target. Let's name it to target by pressing F2, and then we click on this object bar with this data. We go to viewport display and set it to wire, and you can see, so here is solid and wire. Let's continue work on this. Now I like to select these few faces, Shift D to take a duplication of it, And then if extrude once, and extrude once again. Let's press Ctrl Z, and now I like to type 5 instead of just extrude that. Now we have 5 meter. We can say that it's centimeter. Then we can scale it down so that it converts from meter to centimeter. Now Ctrl R, assign a new loop cut. Or actually, then we can bevel this loop cut. Ctrl P to bevel it. And then add another loop cut. Now move this to upward this way. Ctrl B to add a bevel of loop cut. Let's remove it and scan it in this way instead, and scan this as well. Ctrl B. Now we can play around with the segments here, make it really smooth, and the width. Of course, we have the shape, as you can see. Let's make it really round. Okay, that's perfect. Let's select it and just move it down. And now, because this is inside one mesh, so now we can just copy, because if I just click on it, you will see that this Boolean modifier is applied for all of these pieces. So what we can do is just select the target, and then we can just select a piece of it, which in this case it can be this piece deselected from here. And now let's move it somewhere around here, and it will actually start to Boolean that out. And even we can change a few parts, Shift E to take a duplication of it, and let's move this closer. Create like this circle. If I just play around with this, you will see that it affects the entire shape. So instead, let's scale it down and create a few dots. Shift E, take a duplication again, move it in Y-axis. Like so. Okay, that's perfect. Now I'd like to apply the modifier. The order of the modifiers is very important. You can see we have got the solidify modifier, and we can first apply that. Control A, and then now I'd like to apply the Boolean. And then we want to keep the bevel modifier. That's perfect. Now it's time for separating these objects. So we no longer need the target. Let's go here and turn off the wires. enter tab, move your cursor somewhere in a piece that you want to separate that part, and then press L. Then press P and choose selection. If we had some material applied to each of these parts, we could select those by materials or by loose parts. In this case, we can actually separate that by loose parts. So we can press P because these are separated. So we can press A, P, and by loose parts. Now we have two part, which is separated from each other. Let's move this to a collection. Or let's change it to sunglass instead. Now let's press N, and I like to rotate this object. First, let's rotate both of those in x-axis by 90 degrees, and now let's move the 3D cursor at this stage, and we select this object, and then we want to set the transform pivot point to 3D cursor. Let's look at from top and RX 90 degrees, but negative 90 degrees. Now you can see it will rotate based on 3D cursor, while its origin point is right here. So when you set the transform pivot point to 3D cursor, it no longer looking at its origin, but its origin is going to be the 3D cursor. That's great. So we need another actually modifier to complete the mission. So let's first move its origin at the center of it. Right click, select right click, and origin to geometry. Now we have, oh, it's not at the center at all. So let's select everything and move the 3D cursor. Let's select these two pieces, and now let's move the 3D cursor at the center, origin to 3D cursor. And then now we select this object, and we go and add a mirror modifier. Wow, what a nice shape I've got. Let's demonstrate it. Oh, you will see that it is searching after a target to see the center of it. So this one is the origin of this is fixed exactly at the center. So now we can grab it and just turn off everything except the x-axis, because we want to mirror that in x-axis. A very quick touch I like to adjust is to take a copy of it, shift D, selection, choose, and now let's grab it and scale at this area, press L, and then I like to turn off bevel for a second, and then we want to use solidify modifier to give this part a little bit of thickness, and then turn on offset even. You will see offset even how it will work. It makes all the line straight. And now turn on bevel, but after solidify modifier. Play around with this part because we added the mirror modifier. So let's grab everything and then we move it here, and then let's move this one closer to that. So it's too much. I believe we can make it shorter. Now let's use the mirror modifier for this piece as well, and then we want to add it and this one as a target, and boom, everything is finished. Later when we want to use if we want to texture out this, we can use a class shader, which will make the job really interesting. So let's work on these edges, since a class organ can't be so actually sharp. So make these edges a bit round. And of course we have this area, Ctrl Shift and B. We can bevel the, let's press 2 for edge and bevel this edge, Ctrl B to bevel that. And of course select this one and Ctrl B to make it just a bit smooth. Now it's a lot smooth. Finish now. Let's turn it off. Let's demonstrate a Boolean modifier much better by creating a phone. So for phone we can use cube in this case. Enter tab, scale it down. Look at from top orthographic and want to scale it towards this way. And now I'd like to grab all these edges. We can actually play around with the same setting that I said for the bevel. So we can open up bevel. In this case we want to use bevel weight. And let's set it to weight. We want to make it really round, 10 to 12. And then we can play around with these edges. Make it thinner. Shade out the smooth. You can always adjust this setting in the viewport shading in case if you want to see more clearly, or you can use one of these matte caps, which is interesting as well. Now what's the next? So we can actually create those slots and the place for the speakers and the buttons around it. So we can really easily create that. So let's start from the back part of it. So let's use a plane for creating the rest of these parts. So let's add a plane, and we want to make it very small first, since this is going to be an iPhone. We press 1 for vertices and hold down Ctrl Shift and B to bevel the vertex, and then play around with the the setting that you will get it. Everything looks good, except we need to move it slightly closer to this area. And now let's press E for extrude, just a little bit extrusion, not too much. It's too high. And then let's press I for inside the face and extrude it down. And that's it. Now we can use a bevel to make these parts just a bit round, and we can at any time play around with these parameters. Of course, we don't need to have a face in the background, so we can delete it to make these parts just a bit sharper. Look at from top orthographic now. What we need to do is using a few cylinders 64. Select all these faces. Instead of face, an E. So we're not focusing too much on the details, since we just want to show the modeling process faster. But if you want to focus on each of details for each of these objects, it's it's time for just modeling one of these objects. It takes time, maybe up to 1 hour. So that's the reason why we are just modeling it faster. And let's press Shift and D to take the location and move it down and scale it down as well. So that's about the back side. So I just changed the background for this part. Let's add a cube, and I like to move it here, scale it down, and then let's grab all these edges and Ctrl B to bevel it. Set it to 16. .5. Just we even forget to select this area. Now it's a lot better, so let's get rid of these one and then just play around with hair. I for instead of face, if extrude, and then press 3 for face, move it down as well. Now let's add a bevel, set it to a higher number, and shade it out to smooth. So this is about it, and now it's time for creating these holes. So for that we can use a Boolean, and then let's move it, select it and move through the cursor here, and then we use another cube for this, make it really small, look it from bottom, and scale this to in x-axis. And then we want to use the same method for here. Let's grab all these edges and then N, add them in bevel weight, and add a bevel, choose weight, and then let's play around with here, which is fine. And but here I'd like to add 10 or 16 to make it really smooth. And I would like to play around with this part. Let's make it smaller as the size of a slot. And then let's select this area and move it inside just a little bit. And now let's select this body of the mobile phone and choose a design wrapper and select this cube as the target. Now select it a cube and set it in the viewport display, set it to wire, and voila, everything is fine. Another thing is that we can select this target, shift it to take a duplication of it, and then we want to move it just a little bit towards this way and select this face and move it closer. And then I like to press L to separate that part. And let's play around with the modifier of this to make it round 100% like a circle. Now it's round, and then we can actually select the body once again, and we want to copy this modifier, so we can click here and copy it, or we can add a new, but let's copy it since we add new to every one of these. You can see the target is cube 3 and 3, so we want to remove this cube 3, and instead we want to choose this part with a eyedropper. So let's grab it, and you can see cube 0.004, and I would nose it. And now we select this cube 0.4, and then we want to add array modifier on top of this, and you will see how it will work. So I want to 5 of this, and it works really good. So let's make it smaller in size, and then look at from top of the graphic and move it out. It's very interesting. Of course, we want to take a duplication of these and want to move it to this way. Let's set it to 3 instead of 4. Okay, now let's do the same thing. Select the body, copy or duplicate, and then remove this and instead choose this cube number 5, and voila, we created this very interesting shape. As for the button, we can use the same method. So let's select this small object. We can rotate it 90 degrees in z-axis, and let's move it towards this way, and let's look at from top of the graphic, and we want to move these just a bit in y-axis to make some extra room. And now we can press Ctrl and 3 to look at from one of these angles that we want to apply this button, and then let's select it and copy once again or duplicate. Once you duplicate it, then you can select it, and you will see it because we duplicated it will generate a new name for this. And then let's close this and choose this one as the target. So in the Boolean we have actually onion and intersect and some other things which we can use. And in the difference we have the fast and exact. So you can actually try to use each of these that you want, but in this case the difference is what we're going to use. So this button has been generated. Let's look at from this angle and move it in y-axis a little bit. And then now let's take a duplication of these, and we want to add two more buttons somewhere here, and then shift D in y-axis. We can generate another button. So we can merge these two by Ctrl J, so that, and then we can merge these two. So let's select it and Ctrl J, and now these will be one object. We can even select these, and you say that it is lost its target. Now let's change to this one, and with this boolean we want to actually create hole for 3 objects because we merged these together. That's about it. And then we can actually create the button once again. So let's take a duplication of these objects, and then we want to set these objects to solid mode because we want to see those well, and I like to move it down, and let's select each of these, and then we want to set those to individual, and we make sure to scale it down a little bit. Since this scale won't work exactly, so we want to use these option right here. It calls for shrink or flatten. So let's grab this handle, hold on shift, and very slightly scale it down. Now we will get a very better result out of it. Press 3, select these two faces and move them in x-axis in this way. And let's do the same thing. And then we can actually apply the modifiers. So let's select the body and want to apply these by Ctrl A. Oh, you can see. So we have to go back. First of all, let's turn off. First of all, let's apply the bevel, and then we want to apply the rest with Ctrl A. And now let's get rid of these target, and for this button we can select those, and we can select the body again, or let's select all these objects that we have got here. Let's remove these because we applied and there is no need to have those. And now we can actually select the entire objects, and then select the, then you can add an empty. Let's move it here and then choose the empty, scale it down, and scale it in y-axis, in x-axis a little bit, and select everything, then the empty, and then Ctrl P and keep transform. Now we can rotate it 100 or 90 degrees in this way, and you will see the details. And I like to select these face, I for extrude, I for insert the face, just a little bit, and then we want to move it up, and then scale it once again very slightly, so that we create these very nice edges around it. Then we can shade flat to see it clearly. So that's how we can use Boolean modifier to create these awesome phone. And now you can just grab it by RR 2 times and rotate it. Okay, so that's about the mobile phone. I've already created these very interesting models with the help of the screw modifier and array. And then I'd like to take a duplication of these and let's hide the original. And then I like to work on the original one to make this part close. So let's move it in x-axis and close it. That's perfect. And then I like to actually right click and convert to mesh. Now we converted all of these to mesh. But since this is too high poly, you can see we can actually apply this same object that I want to use. Instead, let's delete a few of these, and we have saved just 9 of these. Right click, shade flat, and you can shade out to smooth. Control S to save your project. You can press 5 to look at in orthographic mode. Okay, so let's add the modifier that we're looking for. We go to generate, and we have a build, and we have another one called for Remesh. So let's try with a build. As soon as I assign the build, you will see these very interesting effects. It starts from scratch and build it up for us. So it can be useful, and we can animate it by keyframe and actually use it in our projects. And then we have the length of 100 and randomize we have. So we start from nothing and then we start to build it until we complete this mission. So that's kind of really interesting effect that we will get. I didn't see anyone use this technique. So this is how the builds will work. And let's turn on overlays, and I like to delete these. Let's use another one. It's called for Remesh. And let's even get rid of this because Remesh works a little bit heavy, and we have it here. So Remesh works like this. So we have full control over voxel, sharp, smooth, and block. You can see as soon as I switch it to this way, we will remesh it as the block. So don't go too high, otherwise you might start to crash. Let's set it to 6 instead, and you will see this very interesting shape. You can play around with the scale. And then we have threshold. And then we have smooth, which make this kind of jump. Makes it smoother. We can play around with the scale. And the sharp. You can see the edges is really sharp compared to this one. And the voxel is interesting. Let's do 8 instead. 7. So this is interesting. I like to keep it. And here, the smooth and sharp and voxel. So voxel is interesting in my opinion, in this case only. Then let's use rebuild. You can hold on shift. To stop it somewhere. So let's have this one as well. Another modifier that is really helpful is that you can see if I just turn it off, we have a lot of geometry on these. If I just use a remodifier, so sometimes Blender will crash because of a high amount of polygon. So let's go in the modifier in the generate, and we have something called for Decimate. If I apply the Decimate, and we have 3 options to choose, let's go to Planner, and if I just play around with the Planner, it tries to kill the unnecessary geometry, and we will get a very low poly object. Let's unsubdivide. Oh, let's set it to, and you can see how unsubdivide will work. And if I just go here and turn on statistics, you can see that originally it has around 7,000 or 14,000 or 15,000 triangles. But after applying this, we will get only 3,000 polygon, which it killed a lot of those. And still we will see it as a high poly mesh. It's very interesting. Another very interesting modifier is the mask modifier. For example, in this area, you can see that we have got very nice object with the which create with the help of blocks. So I like to actually use a piece of these. Can be, I mean, I'll leave it as the block, but the rest should be the original one. So let's remove the block, and then we have now the original one, and on top of these the blocks. So how we can do that? Well, so we have to first hide the original one, and then we have just the blocks, and then we go here and assign the mask modifier. As soon as I assign it, it says, oh, which part of this should I use? First, let's move it before the Remesh, and now let's turn it off. And in this way, I like to select a part of this. In this case, let's select this area, like so. And then we go to the data properties, and we want to assign a vertex group. Let's click on assign because we selected this part and we want to assign it to this vertex group. That's fine. Now let's go to the modifiers again and click here and upload that vertex group that we are searching for. And just enter tab. And if I just turn it on, you will see that it will just show up. It will mask the rest and will just solve that selected part which we assigned the vertex group. And now we can turn on these original, and we want to get these very interesting effects. And of course we can scale it and play around with it, like the Black Panther movie that we have got. Wow, it's very interesting. So what else can we do in Blender? So all of these effects is available right in Blender with the help of modifiers. Okay, and then we have access to all of these nice categories. And of course, at any time we can just press W or this lasso and just choose whatever parts we need to add, and then we can just come across this. Oh, not this one, but this, the original one. So let's hide this, and then let's select the blocks. We could rename it to make it clear, and then we assign it. And if we just go back, we will see that part appears in here. And then we can click on this select to see whatever part is selected. And assign, and you will start to see those parts is added. And if you want to remove a part, you can just do it like so. Select it and click on remove, and it will remove it. And let's turn this one on, and we'll start to see these very interesting effects. So that's about the masks combination with the Remesh. Now it's time to demonstrate another very interesting 3D model. It's going to be a graphic tablet and its pen. First, I like to model the graphic tablet. So let's add a cube, scale it down, look at from front of the graphic and scale it down a little bit. Now I like to select this face and extrude in x-axis. We can scale this part as well a little bit. And now we press 2 for edges, and I select all these edges at the corner. We press N, go to item, and set it to 1 in the mean bevel weight. Then we move to modifiers and we add a bevel, set the limit method to weight. And here we have full control about how we can manage this. Let's set it to 16 to make it really round. Since I'm creating a very stylized graphic tablet, I like to make it just a bit of square shape, a little bit more. So that's about it. And now we, as I said, we have full control about how we can manage these. Let's set it to 24 instead to make it really round. So this is the first step. Now we can select this top face, and we press I for insert the face, and we insert the face like this. Let's press Ctrl and Z. Let's apply this by Ctrl A, and now we can insert the face better. So I for insert the face. Let's take a look what we're doing exactly. Select this face. First Ctrl A to apply it, and then press 3 to select this face. I for insert the face. First I like to extrude it inside by pressing E and extrude. And now we can press 2 and grab these two edges. And look at from top of the graphic, we can move to solid mode or wrapper mode to see it better. And Ctrl B. And remember that we have assigned 24, so we can assign the same value to here, and then just take a look. These borders should be somewhere around here, not too high. So let's play around with this. Now it's very interesting. So the depth is too much, so let's move it or let's have it as it is, because we'll demonstrate another very interesting modifier later. Now I like to grab all of these parts and then X and dissolve them. Oh, here we will have some problems, so let's dissolve this area and dissolve this FU. And we will leave this one, because if I just do it without any problems, so we can resolve it. Ctrl S to save our project. Now we press 2, select all these edges and these edges and the back and the back side as well. And then we press Ctrl and B to bevel it. We don't want to use too much of the bevel. Let's set it to 8 and play around with it here. Ctrl B once again, set it to 5 instead. And shade out to smooth. I've got a very clean, graphic tablet. At any time we can select this area and move those towards this way to make it, to adjust it as we wish. Now let's add some buttons. So select these bigger face and we add a cylinder for that. 64 should be good enough. And we'll look at from top of the graphic, move it in front a little bit. And the place up here is too much, so let's select the entire shape and or let's select from here and we move those towards this way. Scale it down a little bit. Scale in x-axis, move it up, select this face, Ctrl B to bevel it, and play around with the width. Now let's grab these two faces and bevel them by 2. That's perfect. Now let's move to the next button. We want to create the size X. Move it up a little bit. And move it up once again. Select both of these, Shift D. And then right click to cancel it, then grab it by G, Y, and move it up, down. Now select everything, scale those down. We can use a bevel for this case. Oh, not too much. Let's put it to 3 or 4 or 5 and play around with the amount. That's perfect. In case if you want to create some holes as we did in the previous video, so you can do that, but I leave it as it is. So that's great. In my case, we can actually select the bottom. Let's press W to select the select box. And then we scale it down a little bit. Now it's a lot better. Let's move it down a little bit. That was perfect. So the graphic tablet is finished now. And then we want to add another very interesting shape. So let's create the pen as well. for pen, we can use the cylinder. We can set it to a low poly, such as 12, and let's move it up here. Let's start from here. We can scale it down. E for extrude, scale it down, and I for insert a face, and extrude it once again. So very fastly we'll generate this interesting pen. Scale it down. And let's complete it. So I want to add a few actually details here. So we can add a loop cut, and I like to use subdivision modifier for this area, and Control B this part by one time, and let's grab the top face, I for insert the face, and I once again. So now we press Ctrl and 2 to add 2 levels of subdivision, and then we are good to work the rest of these objects. Okay, that's great. Now let's select this area by pressing 3. A loop cut towards this way, Alt E and face along normals. I like to create this very nice extrude option here. GG 2 times, Control B to bevel it. And I'll select these two, Alt E and face along normals. And then Alt E once again, face along normals. And scale it down. So let's set it to individual origin and scale in Z-axis. Let's add a few loop cuts here in these very tiny parts. It makes these edges sharper. And now if I just press 3, we can press Alt E, face along normals, scale it down. Oh, it's not too interesting, so let's hold down S and Shift Z to move it inside a little bit. I'm happy with this result. We could actually work a little bit more on it to make it to receive a very better result, but it's fine. Of course, we can assign a few buttons here very fastly. And here I like to use Boolean modifier, but Boolean, I don't believe that it will work with the subdivision modifier, so we have to apply subdivision modifier. Now let's press Ctrl A to apply subdivision modifier, and then we want to use this one as the target, and you can see we have created this hole here. And then let's use Shift D for this button, and we want to use the same tool here to scale it down a little bit. So let's press P for separating, and let's name it to target. I believe we had another target, so let's name it target point 01, and yeah, that's fine. And now select the target, we go here and set it to wire. Select the pen, Ctrl A to apply the Boolean modifier and remove the target again. And now we can use a bevel again for these edges. Let's apply this bevel. So you can see that I selected everything, and we press M and choose view by distance. In this way we will remove a few unnecessary vertices which just collapse on each other. And that's the button generation, which is finished. And we can actually do the same thing with this guy. Ctrl A, apply it, and delete. Ctrl J to join them together, make it smaller in size, and then move it. Shade out to smooth. We'll get this part a little bit chunky, but that's going to be fine. Now let's demonstrate another very important and useful topic, which is the weight paint. So for that we assign a new plane. Let's right click and subdivide it a couple of times. And now we go to the weight paint. And here I start to paint something. The red color represents the highest point, and the blue means the dark blue is for the lowest part, or the 0. And here's the 1. It's actually like a black and white texture. And then let's grab these blur to paint it and make it blurry, like so. And then let's go to object mode again. So you notice nothing will happen here, but if you go to data, object properties data, we will see this new vertex group is assigned. So if I just enter tab and we select one of these and then we choose select, you will see this area we have painted. So no matter if you just select the faces from here and assign it, or we go to the weight paint and paint those. So this is the weight paint. Now let's combine it with the modifiers to create some awesome result. Let's move to cast, and then in the cast it actually is searching after the vertices and the target. Let's add a target because the object is searching for the target. At this time we can use empty. Let's add a sphere, make it smaller, and move it up. Select the empty, select the plane again, and choose this eyedropper and select the empty. As soon as I do that, you will start to see some interesting things will happen. So we can play around with the position and scale doesn't change, but we can move it. So here we can play around with the axis. Since the shape is the sphere, and you can see how different things will work. And I think because the object or the target is like a sphere, so we can set it to sphere. And let's turn off these two axes. And now we will see that it doesn't work in X and Y axis, but it will work in X axis. Of course, we can play around with a factor, make it negative in negative direction. We can play around with the radius, but it doesn't seem to be working in this situation. And then use transform, gives us this kind of effect, but we want to see it stable on its own place. Let's make it smaller, and now we just can move it like so. So you see that we already assigned these vertices. What if I just inverse the vertices by Control I, and then we can assign it, and then Control I and remove this area. So now if I just select, you will see that we are just selected this area. So what is happening is that we can go to select the modifier again. We didn't assign the vertex group. So let's assign it. And if I just move, you will see that it only affects the places which we assign the vertex group. And the center part, which there is no vertex group, it doesn't affect it anymore. But if I just select it, and we can press Ctrl I to inverse the selection, and we can assign it, then or let's just select this area, assign it, Ctrl I to inverse the selection and remove it. And now you will see that it just affects those area which is applied the same modifier or the same effect of the vertex paint. So we can use these very useful techniques for the graphic tablet to control that. And of course we can make it more smoother by adding 2 levels of subdivision, and you will see. And now we have full control over this area. Or we can select the object, right click and subdivide a couple of times, and we will get a very stronger effect. And boom, we got this very interesting shape. Of course we can play around with it until we actually move it in negative direction. And of course we can change it and just play around with this to get a very smoother shape. Or we can just press W and select a box around it and decide this area as the effector. Assign, Ctrl I and remove. And if I just go to weight paint, you will see we have assigned this very interesting pattern around it. And then let's move it, the empty or the controller, a little bit up, and this is what we have get. So that's how it will work. And let's jump onto the graphic tablet and use a couple of these. Now it's time to working on this graphic tablet. For the graphic tablet we can use the same option. Let's move through the cursor at the center of this and we assign a plane. Let's scale the plane. Look at from top at the graphic and scale it in y-axis. It's good to be careful a little bit. And now we right click and subdivide it. Subdivide it once again. It looks too good. Now let's go and assign the cast, and then we want to just focus on it first, and I like to select the select box and press 3 for face, and I want to choose this area as the target. Now let's look at from top of the graphic, and well, let's scale it really big. Let's first scale it, select everything, and I like to remove a few of these which is unnecessary. Hold on Control if you selected something by mistake, just delete it. And now press W, select the select box, and just draw a line. Oh, select the select box. And then we press Ctrl and minus, because I like to select less of these faces. Ctrl minus once again, and here I like to select this area. Let's deselect this area as well, and that's very good. So let's go to data, and then we assign a new vertex group, and we leave the rest as it is. Now if I just go to its modifier, turn it on, and we want to load up this vertex group, and then we want to actually assign an object. So let's select this pen and select this area, Shift S, and cursor to select it. Then I like to assign an empty, let's say a sphere, and then we select the sphere and then pen, Ctrl P to parent it. Okay, that's great. Now let's select this eyedropper and choose the empty as the target. And as soon as I do that, you will see what is happening. So let's play around with the change a few settings, like disabling the X and Y, and then we can play around with here and play around with the radius, how much of that you want to see. Let's move the empty just a bit down, and we will start to see this very nice, like an eyedropper when it hits the ground and then explode. Okay, that's about it. And then we can assign a 2-level up subdivision for this to make it smoother. Of course, we can play around with these much more to give it, to see its actually power. Another modifier that we can use on top of this is the actually wireframe. So as you can see, if I just open it up, we have something called for vertex group, and we can assign the same vertex group, or we can create or generate a new vertex group. You will see that I turned off subdivision modifier, so let's move it down. Let's create some room, and here I like to play around with some of the setting, like turning up replacing original, and as soon as I do that, you will see we have this solid at the background. Now we can play around with the with the thickness. Hold down Shift, and of course we can play around with the offsets to make these wires thinner or thicker. And then on top of that, we can turn on subdivision modifier. Of course, it makes it really heavy, as you can see, but we will, after a while, after a few seconds, see the result. and we still have access to all of these. We can grab it by G and just move it, or let's grab the pen and just move it, and it actually starts to work very nicely. So we can create a very interesting animation with just combination of these few actually modifiers. Wow. At any time we can adjust the casts factor to make it stronger or less strong. That's up to us. And this is what we have got. Let's turn all the collections and to see what we have created so far. So we have to manage these a few models that we have created to make it very interesting. So I will manage those by selecting each of these and scale them in this way. Make sure to set the transform pivot point to bounding box, otherwise if it's an individual you will scale each of these individually, which is not what we want. And in some case we need to parent things together and use an empty to control those, such as here I like to use empty, and for this guy I like to turn them off, and we can keep one of these. Now let's look at from here, move it towards this way, or we can change it from cube to sphere, and then select it, Control P, keep transform. Now we can control it with the help of these nice empty. I like to do the same thing, so for the mobile phone we already did it, so there is no need to do it again. And this is the final result. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. See you soon in the next tutorial.